Alright guys, I'm getting ready to do a door hinge pin bushing replacement on my 55 four-door that I'm building for my wife. I actually done the driver's side, I done the top one, and then I was like, oh, I should have done a video. So I did the bottom one, and my camera shut off like 3/4 of the way in. So I'm going to come around to this side and run you through it. So here we go. Make sure my camera angle's correct here. All right, so to do the hinge pin bushings on one of these cars, one thing that you are going to need is an impact driver. This is called an impact driver. I know some guys know this, but some of you may not know. So you buy this, it usually comes in a case, a little square case, and it has all kinds of little different bits that come with it that come in and out. Now this is, like you can see on mine, it has an R and it has an L, so be sure it is locked in for reverse. So what this does is you put it in the screw, which in my case is a Phillips head bolt. You put that in there, and then you use a hammer on the end of it and whack it, and when you hit it, it turns in the process. So every time you hit it, you have to turn it with your hand a little bit to get it to go back to the correct direction. At least I do on this one. This one's old. I don't know how long I've had this. I could not tell you how many door hinge pin bushings I've replaced with one of these. These are definitely needed to take these screws out of these door hinges, and also if you have a four-door sedan, you're going to need it to remove your rear door hinges from your B-pillar. But anyway, so I've already knocked these loose with that to get them loose. Those down there I haven't done yet. The top I've already knocked it loose, and you usually have to hit it quite a few times. The top screw, I think I hit it about 4 times, and the bottom one I hit it about 10 times, but it finally broke it loose. So at this point, I can go ahead and take these out. I doubt these have ever been out since the car was, assembled, so they are nice and stuck. Threads appear to be good. Now these are a specific bolt. They are a Phillips head. They do have a dome to them on the top, but they are countersink. They have a star washer in them, but they're fine thread. And the funniest thing is, these are 5/16 by 24 on your thread. So you can replace these with stainless steel Allen head countersink bolts that look just fine. They don't have the the little star washer on them, but it is a nice detail to put in there. But just remember, your thread size you're going to need is 5/16 by 24. Now if you go to Totally Stainless website, I'm assuming it's totallystainless.com, I don't know, they are not a sponsor. They have a kit for a Tri-5 Chevy that comes with the countersinks, 4 of those per side for your hinges. They also come with the 3 countersink Allens for your strikers here. You can't just hit a hardware store countersink bolt Allen head to put in there because the head is too big. They would need milled down a little bit. The ones from Totally Stainless are the correct small head countersink for your strikers. So if you don't want to mess with trying to grind heads of bolts down, that's where I would get them. They're not very expensive. I have them on the hard top, and I actually love them. Anyway, so I've got the Phillips screws out. Now there's 2 bolts down inside, and they take a 9/16 socket, and you have to have a pretty good extension on there. All right, I'm going to show you these bolts. Now these are a specific bolt as well. These take a 9/16 socket, but they're actually 5/16 by 24 as well. A 5/16 bolt usually takes a 1/2 inch wrench. These take 9/16, so this is a specialty bolt. But if you look at the washer's square, and it's kind of funky. So if you've got some of these bolts thrown in a box and you don't know what they're for with that funky square style washer, that's where they go. hinge comes right out of there. So anyway, at this point, here's your pin right here. Down inside there you have a tapered end, and then you have the flat hinge right here. So at this point I will take this, and like right now I'm going to set it on a concrete block right here off the edge where I have clearance for that pin. So anyway, I pretty well knocked it out of there and it's ready to come out at this point. But I'll show you this pin. This is a short pin and it has knurling on it. So it's, when you go to put this back together, you'll see your knurl lines on there, so you know that's where the knurled in part of the bolt thing goes. So, I should have unlocked that first. I've got the hinge actually open right now, so it's locked on those hinge locks, and it needs to be. Golly. There we go. So now I've got it in the loose position, so when you pull your pin out that way, it comes out easier than if it's locked up in there. So here's your two bushings right here that will be getting replaced. Anyway, this is, it's kind of funny, me being on a budget, you know, I don't want to spend money unless I have to. Fortunately, I have just a, it's like a junk, just extra crap that I have in a little container here. But as you can see, I got a lot of hinge pin bushings in here, and I've even got some pins, and these are actually for a G-body, like a 78 to 88 Monte Carlo Regal Cutlass Grand Prix or whatever. Now, if you go down to the parts store to get them for a Tri-5 Chevy, like this has happened to me before, they're either special order, or I remember going to one of the stores and they didn't even have them listed. So if you tell them, like 1985 Chevy Monte Carlo, they'll probably have them out there on the shelf in the Dorman aisle with all the Dorman parts. And this is pretty much what they look like. These are for a G-body. So they are identical, other than they're a little bit shorter than the factory ones, and I'll show you right here. So once you have your hinge out like that, I will take a punch and I'll set it up down in there and get on the bottom edge of that bushing. Set it up in there like that. You see it starting to come out of there. There it is right there. So I can show you here. This is a factory Tri-5 one. This is a G-body one. Everything's identical except the length. This one's longer in the Tri-5 one. It doesn't matter. It still works just fine. If you want to get the correct ones, you can. But for me, I had a bunch of G-body ones there because I've built a lot of G-bodies through the years. So I'm just going to replace it with G-body ones. Punch. Set that punch down up inside there like that at an angle and get it up on the edge of that bushing, and see how it just drives it right out of there. Anyway, you'll take your new bushings, set them down in there. There we go. That's all there is to it. Now check your pin when you pull it apart. Like mine doesn't have any wear on it. There's no indent in it. It's very, very nice shape. So I'm just going to reuse it. So at that point, you'll basically take this and turn it up in there like that. Sometimes you gotta give it a little adjustment there. Now look for my knurling in my hinge body right there, which I see. I'll put the hinge pin bushing in there. And then just give her a couple of good whacks to reseat that knurled head on there. So now I have new hinge pin bushings, and at that point it's ready to go back in there. Now I'll show you this. Sometimes when you pull these apart, inspect every one of your bolt threads, because sometimes these get fried and the threads will be messed up. So these appear to be fine. I don't see any problems with them. Where's the other one? That's great. I lost one of the bolts, but oh, it's still in the socket right there. So all the threads seem to be fine. Now again, they're 5/16 by 24 if you need to run a tap on there or a die. But the die, I don't need to do it on the bolts, and I don't need to run a tap into the plate up here. And I'll show you this. If your threads are messed up in your plate, you just reach right up inside here. You'll see this piece hanging out. You can grab hold of that and you can pull that nut plate out of there. All this is thick plate that's drilled and tapped, so you can run your your tap in there to clean it out if you need to. Now, if these are laying in a box, the top one's different from the bottom one. The top one goes in from the side, the bottom nut plate goes in from the top, so you can't mix them up. So I'll stick that back in there. The threads are just fine, so I don't need to adjust them or fix them, I guess. But anyway, you just reassemble at that point to put it back together. So that's pretty much all there is to it. It's a pretty simple setup. Now again, the factory Tri-5 ones are longer than the G-body ones that I use, but it doesn't matter. It still works just fine. I can tell you without a fact, or without a doubt, I should say, G-body doors are a hell of a lot heavier than Tri-5 Chevy doors when they're loaded. I promise you. G-body doors are heavy. They're like the old second gen, F-body, man. Them things are so heavy. And normally when you take those cars apart to redo the hinges, that bronze bushing is usually completely gone, and the hinge and everything is just, the metal is worn out. So at that point, when you buy a repair kit, it will come with oversized bushings as well, which are these. So it's a bigger part here. The pinhole is the same, but this is a bigger diameter. It's also knurled, so all you do basically is drill your hinge. If it's worn, if the metal's worn, you can drill the hinge and use the oversized bushing. You'll have to use a caliper to make sure you get that right, because you sure don't want to drill the hole bigger than what you need. So anyway, that is pretty much it, guys. I hope it might help somebody out. I know there's 10 million videos probably out there of how to change hinge pin bushings, but I mean, that's about how long it takes if you have your parts laying out. All I used was a long, skinny, little small punch. I've got a little small ball peen, and then I've got my impact driver and a 2-pound hammer. So, and 9/16 socket, long extension, and a ratchet. But anyway, I'll go ahead and put new bushings in here because I have another set that I can do in there, and that pretty much all 4 will be redone. So anyway, guys, hope it helps you out. Thanks for watching.